What's the purpose behind the marketing plan? You excite, you educate, experience, and engage. Let's do this, right? Let's do this and let's have fun with it too. To my first-time listeners, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate you being here. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Marketing with In-Depth Podcast, where I'm your host, Nathan Webster, for another edition of Let's Talk Marketing. What's up, everyone? How y'all doing today? How y'all doing out there? This is part 2 from 204. We're going to 205. We're going to talk about the negative impact of bad pricing. So my first-time listeners might want to jump to 204. If you don't want to, that's cool. We'll talk about what we're going to talk about. And for my worldwide listeners out there, thank you for joining the show again and sharing and showing me love. For those that still haven't left a review, we really need them on iTunes, okay? All right, let's just get into the show. Okay. So last episode that I literally just recorded, I just put on my vest for those that are watching, right? I like to have a little bit of a difference, right? So when it comes to the last episode in 204, quick recap, I just talked about how homie hookups are not the best way to go about things, especially when you are a new company. I didn't talk about that, but homie hookups is where you have failed to understand the value of your product, and that's part of your sales and marketing strategy. They are married, they're individual, and they become one. But when you are creating that from the 4 P's of marketing with the price, starting with the place. Oh my gosh, I'm way off. Let me just say the 4 P's of marketing because I'm giving you everything except for the thing I'm talking about. The 4 P's of marketing are product, price, place, and promotion. There are others, but we're just focusing on the product and the price. And today we're focusing on the price because we are talking about what's important, which is why I want to give myself enough time here. Instead of working on your business, which was the last episode, I'm going to talk about working in your business. So let's just get into it because I have a lot to share here. I'm going to use myself as an example. I don't want to use my clients because, oh my gosh, there are some grease fires, some garbage fires. There's companies that went out of business. I'm not going to talk to you about those things. I'm just going to talk to you about how I've done it and how I've seen it done. And we're going to talk about some familiar names that you understand, okay? Or that you know. Or if you're not familiar with, go search them up because there's a great case study for you to pay attention to. All right. So working in your business is something as entrepreneur, freelancer, especially a freelancer, loves to do. There's no system. You might say, Nathan, what's the difference between a freelancer and an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is building a business to where they can have employees or a team, and they're building on a premise on it that this will become a full-fledged company at some point in time where it can do more than just operate outside the individual, which is the freelancer. A freelancer is not trying to be a company. However, they are their own company and they take projects as things come their way, but they're not set up to run systems. They're not set up to have employees, and they're not set up to scale because it's just them. So a freelancer is important to a lot of companies. We call them contractors. We call them in schools substitute teachers. They're a freelancer because they really don't have a home, and they're okay with that. But in this case, when you're building, you may not say like, well, maybe I'm still confused. Okay. So an Uber driver is a freelancer. A taxi cab driver is a freelancer, right? However, a taxi cab driver can take their business license because they have to have a business license, just like an Uber driver, and they can build an empire of their own fleet, if you will, of say like not a taxi, but other things, right? But they need to build systems. A Uber, you just rely on their system. So with that in mind, I drove Uber, okay? You may say, what does this have to do about? Hey, I drove Uber in the very beginning days of my company, and it was really easy. And this is about pricing now. This is about pricing. It was real easy to drive Uber because the money came. But what I wasn't doing is I wasn't building my business because I was working in my business to pay the bills, because the business has its own bills. I have my own bills, and the bills of the business are not the bills of you. Because when you are starting off, and even an existing business, you might have different phone plans. You may have different utility bills, right? And what the business needs is not what you need. But the business has to get paid. So when I was driving for Uber, the business was getting paid, and what we made, because had such small overhead, it wasn't that much, so I could put it in my own pocket. Business gets paid, then I get paid. And you start this cycle where it becomes, okay, well, hey, I'm just going to keep driving. I'm going to keep driving. There's other things. I don't have to worry about the number one thing, coming back to the last episode, is building my business to where I get customers. Remember when I said selling isn't branding and branding isn't selling, and that's all part of your sales and marketing strategy? Well, you have to understand, when you're working in your business, you're not working on developing those systems to work. You're just out there getting new clients. I have to do the same. I have to work in my business to get new clients as well. The difference is I can pull myself out and plug that person I'm talking to in a system so my team member can handle that. And sometimes my team member may not want to handle that because they're their own business too, or they run a business and they have to determine whether or not this is something they want to do. So this is why that pricing, when you're giving a homie hookup, okay, for all those that are like, okay, Nathan, make this connect, right? Make this connect, Nathan. When you're giving a homie hookup, you are only helping yourself for the moment, but you're not helping your business. And the part about that is, this is where you made it about the price instead of making it about the product or the service that you were delivering. So you turn that homie hookup to where they made it about the homie hookup. And I had to stop doing homie hookups myself because I made it about the relationship. And not to say anything's wrong with that, right? But the relationship shouldn't take anything away from the value proposition. Now, let me give you a couple of examples. Apple has never put an iPhone on sale. Apple has all these extra stuff that you have to buy when you have an iOS system. And I was going to show you, but Apple's not sponsoring me, so I'm not going to show you. And those that are Apple users, you know, like, oh my gosh, another dongle? Really? Oh my gosh. And then you're like, where's all my dongles at? Hopefully we're moving to USB-C, everyone here soon, which we are. We won't have all these issues. But Apple is notorious for all these other attachments you have to use because Apple just doesn't allow anyone to come into their platforms, their machines, or their system, or their platform, which is the iOS, the mothership, if you will, the equipment or the products or the services like iTunes or iCloud, those sort of things. So that whole trifecta, like if you want to be a part of it, you have to pay for it. But having an email is free. So they price things out to where they will be able to always get a profit. Always get a profit in some way, shape, or form. They're either getting you on their platform, right? Even though you might not buy something free, it's still, when you accept it, you still have bought into it. Okay, you get into one of their equipment, their products, right? You get a watch, a iPad. You don't need cellular, right? You can get into a lot more of their horizontals. And they're not coming down on a discounted price. You can also get into their iTunes, a service, right? The intangible. And they're going to price it to where they're going to make money. Now, the folks on the other end, I'm not going to get into that. I don't know if they're not making money or not. But Amazon's the next best example of how you may say, like, wow, this is a great deal, $14.99. But let me tell you, $14.99 is just to get you in the door, y'all. Like $14.99, that's another podcast, which I should do one on podcast because AWS keeps Amazon afloat. $14.99 does not. The free service and everything else, then I know people pay a fee, but have you not seen the return places at Amazon? These return people be returning things left and right. That is not a very profitable business model. However, it took Toys R Us out. It almost took the U.S. Mail Department service out. You know, these are the things when we talk about working on the business, it's the strategy of not just, remember in the last podcast I said, what is the immediate, short-term, long-term? So if you have a business, you're going to sunrise it. It's going to be at the highest point in the sun where you are sustaining or scaling it, right? As the sun goes down to where you sunset it. What does that look like? What does the price look like for you to charge to where your cost doesn't impact your bottom line, but it does nothing but help you? If you're hurting yourself because you're giving homie hookups, it's not going to be sustainable. So this is the negative impact of bad pricing is where you will not sustain your ability to compete at the level you need to compete at this global level of competition that everybody wants the dollar or the Bitcoin, whatever the currency is that is the highest value. People understand now we are in a capitalistic society. If you price it wrong, you might not be able to change the price for another few years. That's why these companies are going out of business. You know, pick up a book, Jim Collins, Good to Great. A bad company can be phenomenal in a great economy. But in a bad economy, they don't have none of their beep right. And it's because people buy whatever in a great economy because money's flowing. In a bad economy, look, we don't know like people getting laid off. There's higher minimum payments on credit cards. People are trying to save up to have a stay vacation because they can't go on a out of town vacation. People look at their budget and spend their frivolous money a lot more frugally. I do want to point out to you that this is where, seriously, y'all, this is where you have to stay on top of your game, stay on top of your industry, stay on top of your business, and not be so into the business where you're making the money where you fail to not see the next iteration coming. Because what happens when you start losing customers, right? What does that mean? Oh, things might not work out. So go see an expert. If it's not me, find somebody, because you don't want you to be out in the cold when you should be warm, right? So I'm going to leave that alone for now, because I just want y'all to be successful. So, as my first-time listeners, to my worldwide listeners, if you haven't left a review, I'm just asking you to subscribe and share if you would like to, okay? If you really enjoyed it, can you please leave a comment? That would really help me. And a rating. That would be great. But if not, it's all good, because this is free. I paid to be on here, and that's okay, because that's the price of doing business, because I'm working in the business. And I'm glad I was able to help you. And if not, shoot me an email if you have some topics that you have for me, because I wish you nothing but the best. I want you to succeed. We are in this thing called life together. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know Self-Help 101 is a daily grind and the hustle and bustle that you do on a consistent basis. So, y'all, I wish y'all nothing but the best. So until next time, dream big and Godspeed. I'm out. What's the purpose behind the marketing plan? You excite, you educate, experience, and engage. Let's do this, right? Let's do this, and let's have fun with it too. To my first-time listeners, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate you being here.